I'll second.
Was that Scott Biesecker?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Biesecker?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Swab?
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer?
Yes.
Pastor Reindl?
Yes.
Okay, next item of business is election of officers. Do we have any nominations for president?
I nominate Scott. Dr. Swab?
Anybody else? Okay, motion, I guess you're gonna motion to close the election. Is that how we've been doing it? And then vote on it? Carla, is that
Yes,
the best
right.
way to do it?
Well, actually,
I didn't think we had to, but okay.
take the motion. It's not set up for a close of nominations, but we could do that and then take the vote on the office. So if you want to close the nominations, we can do that.
I didn't think we had to, but I thought that's what you wanted here by having a motion in a second.
No, actually, it's set up that who's president would be put in the slot, and then just a motion, second, and a vote.
Okay, now you don't need a motion, we just vote on it then. Okay.
We could just vote on it.
All right. Go ahead then, roll call.
I'm sorry. We would. Is there a motion for the?
Well, I told Ash and you said no, so. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. No, we need a motion.
I make a motion that we, whatever motion
That's right.
got me all messed up. I don't know where, I will.
Well, I thought we should just motion to close the nominations and vote on who we got. Since we only got one nomination, vote on that. That's the way I thought it should be done.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
That we
Do I have a
vote
second?
on, that we vote on president.
I'll second. Okay, now we vote on the motion. Dr. Swab will be the president.
Mr. Biesecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Abstain.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Reindl.
Yes.
Okay, got a new president. Go for it.
It's a lot more fun this way, isn't it? Oh, yes. Yeah.
All yours, Scott.
Well, thank you very much. I'll do my best to make our meetings efficient and keep us all out of trouble. So the next item of business is, do we need, Carla, since we're not in person, do we need to do the oath? How does that fit in this environment?
Huh?
Actually, since there are new members this year, there's no one to give an oath to, and we came to the conclusion last year that we didn't need to do the oaths of office for the holding of the offices. So we really don't have a need to do the oaths this year.
Environment. So and the next item on our agenda is electing a vice president. And so I open the floor for nominations. I would nominate Maria, since we've been doing well so far. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept Maria as vice president?
I so move.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
And roll call for approval?
Mr. Biesecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Abstain.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Abstain.
Pastor Reindl.
Yes.
So our next item is discussing our regular meeting calendar for this year. We typically do, if you remind me, we do the Monday. I got an email a couple weeks ago and found out I have a conflict with a hospital board meeting that I didn't know occurred until I got the meeting invite about a week and a half ago, and I'm supposed to be doing that at the same time I'm doing this. So I don't know if we have the possibility to make this at a different day of the week. I know I think Joe sent a message out when I had called him to tell him I didn't realize I had agreed to a meeting that I had a conflict with. They didn't really tell me the dates until after I was on the committee, and then I got the invite for my calendar.
Well, Joe,
what did Joe send out? Was it a Thursday? Or
that's what I was just saying.
My recommendation was stay the same week, the second week of the month, but go the second Thursday instead of the second Monday. I do have alternative dates if you guys want to go through different things, but obviously we're open for anything. And if we can't figure them all out tonight, I can certainly, we can just set it up for the second whatever of the week or third whatever of the week, and we'll fill in the blanks with the dates.
I think that would be the best to set it up either whatever day we set it up the same day every month. Then if something comes up where we need to change it, we'll change it at that, the meeting before. But I think it's better maybe for us and the public to know that the meeting's the second Thursday of every month, if that's what we decide to vote on.
The
And
second Thursday of the month works for me. Is there going to be more problems with ball games on Thursdays?
Yes.
junior high,
That's right.
does any of us?
Softball and track in the spring.
But the only thing, a lot of times too, in your motions, I agree. That's the reason we used to do it before Louis come over on Wednesdays, and that was great because there was no sports in. I know it affected church, but most of us thought that was better. But you got very few got kids on here on the board as of right now. Grandkids, sure. But in the spring, you're going to play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So it don't really matter on your spring sports. And unfortunately, in the winter sports here, we've even got a couple Wednesday games because of cancellations and the pandemic. So I think just set it up a day and we'll just have to go from there. And we don't start till 6:30. Some of your sports are done by then. Your high school wouldn't be, but.
So what do we think? From a operational side, any day other than Monday is good because the agenda changes all day long. So like I printed it at noon and then it was different by the end of the day. During the week, I think would allow administration to get the agenda tidied up so we actually would have an accurate one to review rather than it be ever changing till press time. So how does that Thursday, the second Thursday, look for everybody? Is that something that's doable or not doable, or what's your thoughts? Scott, did you have conflict?
No. I mean, that's fine with me.
It does avoid the OSBA conflict that's been a problem where there had to be a special meeting in November. So that's eliminated with this.
It works good for me.
Okay. So then we're okay with making it the second Thursday of the month? Not this, starting February.
Yes.
So moved. I'm making a motion that we.
What time? But we got to keep the same time, 6:30?
I think, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get here before that, unfortunately. When I get older, maybe I'll be able to get out early.
Or we can even go later. It don't bother me no more. Since I don't have to go to work at night.
It's kind of hard, I think.
I mean, we could even go later too if it's up to everybody else. It don't matter to me. I mean,
I'm okay at
it's harder for you to get here at 6:30. Okay.
Yeah, just basically if we're going to have a kids' junior high game, we can, I know, jumping out in meetings to try to get to the last of a game, especially at a home game. So do we have, I don't see that it's actually a vote for that. So I guess it's unanimous consent. So that will be Thursday. And then the next item on the agenda is establishing the annual board fund. And the prior recommendation has been at 125 per meeting is what it was set at, which is the same compensation as it has been in years past. So do I have a motion to approve to continue the current?
Second.
I'll second.
A roll call?
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindall.
Yes.
Dr. Swab, before you go on, I have one thing here that might, I don't know if it's conflict or not, but looking at the second Thursday of the month for each meeting, it would be February 11th, and I'll send you all these dates and I'll put them on our calendar tomorrow. February 11th, March 11th, April 8th, May 13th, June 10th, July 8th, August 12th, September 9, and then October 14 is actually during the pumpkin show. And I don't know if that would be a conflict or if it would be a way we could all get together and get ready for the parade the next day or whatever it may be. But that would be one that I don't know if would conflict with anything there that we would have lined up or not. And then November 11th, December 9th, and January 13th could be our organizational meeting. That would still get us in within the first 15 days of the calendar year.
Good. Do you think we should make this October the week after Pumpkin Show?
What's the date for the October? Because Pumpkin Show's a week late this year.
I've got
Next
Pumpkin
year, it'll be
Show.
the second.
Let me double check. Pumpkin Show this year is the 12th through the 16th.
Yes.
So if we had it on the second Thursday, the 14th, it would conflict with, or it would be during the Pumpkin Show.
If you want to do that, do you? Might be best to go that following week.
The 21st.
Move it back to the 21st.
Yeah.
Everybody
That
good?
would be.
Good.
Okay.
Got it.
What was the July date you said, Joe?
July
8th.
8th. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Good. Thank you for clarifying that. Our next on the agenda is establishing a service fund for the Board of Education at $6,000, I think is what we've normally had it set at. And that's been sufficient. Do I have a motion to approve? Mike?
I move. Yep.
And a second?
I'll second.
Maria, a second. Any discussion or questions? If none, roll call for approval.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindall.
Yes.
Our next item is to authorize the treasurer, Carla Serber, for this year, 2021, for the normal activities for which we do every year. And I won't review those. They're the same as before. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
So moved.
I'll second.
So, did you get those, Carla?
I got Pastor Louis and Mr. Bisecker.
Yes.
Okay.
Any discussion or question over the items that we have? Hearing none, then roll call for approval.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle.
Yes.
And our next item is authorizing the superintendent, Mr. Hurst, for the following items on calendar year 2021, which again is consistent. We have what did in years past, so I won't review each of those again. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Pastor
I'll
Randall
second.
and Maria. Any discussion or question over those items? Hearing none, roll call for approval.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle.
Yes.
The next item is appointing representatives for this year for the 5 listed areas. So first we have people who want to do the career. Maria, would you be willing to continue in that regard?
Yes, and I think we already took care of that at a previous meeting, but it's good for a 2-year term.
Now, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, what's the new rules that they want us to follow on that?
So my year will be a 2-year term. Some people's will be a 3-year term. Some people will be a 1-year term to stagger our terms. So this coming year, I need a 2-year. And then after that, they will be 3-year terms for everybody. They're just staggering them. So we're all not off the same year, because currently we're all off the same year.
Oh,
So after your 2-year term, then from then on, it'll go 3 years.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Maria, may I ask, is it strictly a calendar year? Because I believe the notes, I need to reflect in the notes your beginning and ending term, so there's no question about it and we won't vote on it next year.
Yeah, it's the calendar year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, that will be noted in the minutes.
I'd like to keep the same one I was doing, if that's okay.
good. So next, do we have anybody who is interested in the legislative liaison and policy?
I'll do it. I enjoyed reading about it. I need to start bringing it to meetings a little bit more.
And I will throw in there, negotiations will be happening next spring. So we'll have a full year before we get to that point, but I guess that doesn't matter. Never mind.
How about strategic plan? Anybody have a desire to work on that as needed?
I will.
Is that Maria?
Yes.
Okay. And how about athletics and extracurricular? Mike?
Yeah, I like that.
I'll get you on 2, but and distinguished alumni, student achievement.
I'll do that one.
Gotcha, Scott. Anybody wish to do anything else? Louis got a little bit of a break, so we'll get him next year.
I was going to say, if you want to plug me in on strategic planning or the...
Yes, you can put Louis on strategic planning and take me off.
Strategic planning is fun.
There you go. That sounds good. Any others? If it looks okay to everyone, do I have a motion to approve the list of appointments?
So moved.
I'll second.
And Louis, for a second. Pastor Randall. And roll call for approval.
Mr. Bisecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle.
Yes.
Our next item is approving Brecker Eckler for our legal counsel for the upcoming year. I have a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
And discussion, Joe, they've been meeting your expectations?
Yes, they're very good to work with, and they're quick to reply with our messages and answer questions.
Have we been using anybody else besides them?
No other law firms. However, we do have some questions that we throw past our representatives at OSBA, just to kind of defray some of the costs of an hourly or even a minute by minute bill coming from Bricker and Eckler. So.
Excellent. So roll call for approval.
Mr. Biesecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle.
Yes.
And we have a motion for adjourning our organizational meeting.
So moved.
And Pastor Rindle second. And I guess roll call for adjournment.
Mr. Biesecker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle.
Yes.
So that concludes our organizational meeting. And since we had to start late, we're move right on to our regular meeting. So I'd like to call to order the Bradford Exempted Village Board of Education January regular session. And since we did the pledge in our last meeting, we'll move right on to the roll call for our current meeting.
Dr. Swab,
Here.
Mrs. Brewer,
Here.
Pastor Rindle,
Here.
Mr. Biesecker,
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening for our meeting and to remind everybody that it's a virtual meeting during the state of emergency as recognized in our April 20th and then just again in our new organizational meeting. This evening we have a board member who's not able to attend, and for us to do a hybrid board meeting, it's functionally doesn't work very well. So, you know, we know our students are in class and we would be there, but since a portion of us have to be missing, it's best that we all do it in our own environment virtually so the actually meeting executes better. Otherwise, it doesn't execute very well. So as soon as our members are all able to attend, we'll get back to in-person meetings in the short future. Our next item is approving the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions to the printed agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the printed agenda?
I so move.
Pastor Louis, and I will second. That's fine. Thank you. And roll call for approval.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller, or Brewer, sorry,
Yes.
here. Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
Our next item is approving a minutes from our December 14th meeting. We've had an opportunity to review. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions or anything regarding those minutes? Hearing none, roll call then for approval.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
And the next section of our agenda is our student spotlight. I'd like to turn it over to our administrative team.
So I'll be filling in for Mrs. Laving tonight since she can't be here. So we, the elementary this month is honoring our kindergarten and beginnergartners. And we will start with our first student, who is Dylan Dunleavy. He was nominated by Mrs. Clark, and I'll read Mrs. Clark's nomination. Dylan Dunleavy is receiving this award because he has made huge growth During the first half of the school year, he has strengthened his independent academic and social skills a great deal. Dylan is also not afraid to ask for help or clarification when needed. Lastly, Dylan works well in small groups and is always willing to lend a helping hand. So that's Dylan Dunleving. He was nominated by Mrs. Clark. The next student we have was nominated by Mrs. Fry. It's Stephen Greer. And this is what Mrs. Fry had to write about Stephen. The student I'm choosing for the Student Spotlight Award is Stephen Greer. Each morning I look forward to his greeting. He always has a story to tell and a smile on his face. He is a hard worker and displays all the qualities of a PAX leader. He can read all the red words, identify all the letters and sounds we have learned so far, and is working on early reading. He also does very well in math. I'm extra proud of the effort he puts in each and every day. Stephen is a model student. He listens and participates during the school day. Not only that, but he plays well with his peers at recess and helps them if they need help. When we walk down the hallway, I can always count on him being Bradford's best. I truly enjoy having him in my classroom. Way to go, Stephen. Keep up the good work. And once again, that was Stephen Greer nominated by Mrs. Fry. And then our third student is Colt Sink. Colt was nominated by Mrs. Ridow, and this is what Mrs. Ridow had to say about him. I would like to recognize Colt Sink from my kindergarten classroom. He is the son of Rusty and Jamie Sink. Colt has one brother, Cooper. Colt enjoys Mario. Colt has many friends at school and does a good job following directions and completing tasks. He brings a lot of knowledge and ideas to the table. He is working on first and second grade sight words as he has mastered his kindergarten sight words. He is reading first and second grade level text easily and comprehends what he is reading. In math, Colt is able to add and subtract multi-digit numbers. He is learning to count money. He does his best in and out of the classroom so that he can continue to show growth. He helps out his classmates when they need assistance. I enjoy having Colt in my classroom. For those reasons and many more, I would like to recognize Colt Sink. Once again, that's Colt Sink, who was nominated by Mrs. Ridow. So that was the elementary student of the month.
In at Bradford Middle School High School, first person nominated is Amy Wright by Mrs. Moore. I would like to nominate Amy Wright, a sixth grader, for the January Board of Education Student Spotlight. Amy goes over and beyond what needs to be done on her assignments. On one of her assignments, they had to create a scary story, and she did a great job on being very descriptive. The story had to be at least 3 paragraphs, and it was 5 paragraphs with 868 words. I like how when she sits down, she's ready to work, and she will keep working until it's done. When she's done with her work, she will come to me and ask what she can do next. Also, Amy is a very polite young lady. Keep up the good work, Amy. Our second student was nominated by Mr. Latino is Sarah Beckstedt. My nominee for Student Spotlight is Sarah Beckstedt. Sarah is in my Algebra 2 class this year as a sophomore, and she is my nominee because I think she is a most improved student since I had last had her in class when she was in 7th grade. Sarah pays attention in class, works hard to learn, and asks me questions when she needs to. She was very quiet and reserved as a 7th grader, and she has become more outgoing now that she is in the high school class. Mathematics isn't a subject that comes easily to Sarah, but I am so impressed with her effort and the fact she earned a B+ in the second quarter this school year. Congratulations, Sarah.
This is the part where I wanted to just say a few thank you words. Our school board members are citizen servants who shoulder critical responsibilities and often make difficult choices for our district. Their focus is always on the future success of the children in our district. Celebrating School Board Recognition Month is just one way to say thank you for all they do. It's important more than ever that communities support public education so that today's students are more prepared to be productive citizens and the leaders of tomorrow. Please take a moment to tell your school board members, thanks for caring about our children and giving so much to our community. Let them know that we support them and that their dedication service is recognized and truly appreciated. Folks, this is a job that people just don't realize how much goes into it. The 5 people you see in front of you tonight are incredible people that continue to give to their community with little or no thanks. So each of you, thank you very much for everything you do. And that being said, there is a little presentation here for you.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Dr. Schwab.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mrs. Brewer.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mrs. Baker.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Pastor Louie.
Thank you, board members, for all your work. Thank you, board members, for all you do.
Thank you, board members.
You want to watch it again?
Thank you, board members.
There we go. And I'm still going to do it again.
Thank you, board members.
There we go. Now I got it figured out.
All right, a couple of highlights at the high school. Mr. Balmer and the FFA received their laser engraver the past week. This is something Mr. Balmer's really excited about with, some funds from Upper Valley and from the Miami County Foundation. He was able to purchase this laser engraver. A couple of the examples there you can see on the screen with the bees on the blocks. They're able to take some paper as well and put in the FFA emblem. So something, him and the kids are really looking forward to, and some technology that we didn't have in the building that I think is going to be really beneficial to our kids and what they can do with things in the future. I want to go over some attendance from this past virtual week. I think it went really, really well. Overall, we had a 94% attendance rate. And out of 256 students in our building, we only had 2 that didn't log on at all. To only have 2 students out of 256, I thought was very positive. And you can see for the entire week, each day was over 90%. So I think we got the message out of the expectations were changing a little bit for this 1 week that we're going to this compared to last spring. And the kids really took to it and did a good job doing their work along with the staff members who had to show up in the building every day. So I just want to thank, the community and the students and their parents and the staff for the hard work that they put in this past week, because I think it really shows.
And for the elementary, right before we left for Christmas break, we had our Christmas parties, and there's some pictures of some of the kids on this slide and then the next slide of, just kind of it. We had to kind of do Christmas parties a little bit different this year with COVID restrictions. But even that being said, the kids had a lot of fun, I think. I know it's something that they enjoy. They look forward to each year, and I'm glad that we were able to do that for them this year. And then on our next slides, we had Mrs. Johnson had a coloring contest. And here's a couple of the class winners. I didn't put all the pictures on there, but these were some of the pictures that those kids did for their coloring contest. Okay, for the elementary virtual attendance, these are our numbers. On Monday, we only had 6% absent. Tuesday, we only had 3.5% absent. Wednesday, we only had 6% absent. Thursday, we only had 5% absent. And Friday, we only had 6% absent. Just kind of talking to, I talked to a teacher just today about what went on last week. I was talking to Mrs. Johnson, and she was very pleased with the amount of work that she got back. Most of her students completed their work. She was talking about how much better it was than last spring. So I think this is something that, we learned from the mistakes that were made last spring. And we knew when we had to come back and go virtual that first week in January, we were able to apply with what we learned last spring. And I think our teachers did an excellent job. I popped in a couple of classes throughout the week. The kids were attentive. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And overall, I'm pleased with how last week went. And then on the 15th, we'll have a virtual National Honor Society induction. On the 18th, there's no school because of Martin Luther King Day. On the 21st, the county spelling bee will be held, and that will be a virtual sort of spelling bee where the kids will be able to watch. And then finally, on the 23rd, we have our powerlifting meet here at Bradford.
Pastor Louie, were you trying to ask a question?
How did the absenteeism rate compare to a typical day in-house?
I didn't count today, but it was probably about the same. I think we probably had about 10 kids after today in the elementary.
What kind of follow-up were we doing with, especially the 2 students, but students that maybe missed 2 or 3 days?
They were contacted. I mean, we contacted them to make sure that they were getting on, and sometimes that's what it took, was that contact to get them, on. But for the most part, it was no different, I think, in terms of the absentee rate as to what we would have, especially with COVID on a normal day. I mean, that between kids having to, we still have kids that have to quarantine because of parents or whatever. Some of those kids were able to actually come on last week and participate because of that.
I was surprised that it wasn't actually a little bit higher than that.
Even during non-COVID times, typically we have about between 10 and 20 students out to answer your question there on the absenteeism. That's about normal.
And I've been tracking absenteeism since COVID started, and we've been as high as 23% absent. Our normal days during COVID have been just like what Mr. Triplett was saying. They're probably, well, I'm going to say right around 10 to 12, maybe 15% is a good day. So what you're seeing here is actually very good as far as how things have been comparing over the course of the last month and a half. And I guess that's it, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So the next item is the superintendent has the recommendation for us to approve a resolution recognizing School Board Month. And Joe to put that up. We're on page 3.
There it is.
Yes, and in essence, it's approving recognition of School Board Month, urging citizens to recognize the work that board members do, and to help with the educational system to meet the needs of tomorrow's children. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution recommended by the superintendent?
So moved.
I'll move.
First Maria and then Pastor Louis. Roll call for approval.
Mr. Miller.
Abstain.
Dr. Swab.
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer.
Yes.
Pastor Reindl.
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes a little difficult to have a motion to recognize yourself, which is a little uncomfortable for us all. But I think the intent from the superintendent is well received. We appreciate the effort to help recognize the work that goes into this, and for future board members, the work that goes into this. Next section of our agenda is our administrative reports, and we'll have, I'd like to go over to Mr. Hertz, the superintendent.
Okay, I've got a couple different things here to talk about this evening. First of all, we talked about how the virtual week was certainly a different environment for everyone. And both Mr. Daugherty and Mr. Triplett touched on this, but I'd like to send out a thank you to our students, our parents, our teachers, our custodians, our kitchen workers, our bus drivers, our aides, our secretaries, our administrators, everybody that's associated with that learning had to learn a different way of doing things last week. And I, for one, really, really appreciated what everything that happened last week. I believe that there was a huge amount of preparation going into it. And I don't want to say everything was seamless, but everything I saw went very well. So it isn't something I'd want to do on a long-term basis. But for the 1 week that we had it, I think we did an outstanding job. I think our staff members really did organize things well. And I think because of that, it showed on how well our kids participated and were involved with different things. So being able to sit in on a couple of those classes last week was inspirational, to say the least. So thank you for everybody for doing that. One of the pieces I need to do each year is to give a report on how many students in our building have been bullied. And a bullying incident is described as a repeated unwanted aggressive behavior that involves real or perceived power imbalance. That being said, we go back through all the records, and as Mr. Daugherty or either of the other two principals work on disciplinary actions for any of our students, they go through and say, okay, yes, this qualifies for a bullying situation, or no, it doesn't. There's tons of situations, and maybe tons is an exaggeration, but there's many situations where there's a dispute between different people, but only one of them this year actually constituted as a true bullying situation. So that is what's going to be translated to the state. There's a report that has to be filed each year, and I'll take care of that here in the next, when it's due. But as a piece of that, we are supposed to report that to the school board and thus the public. Secondary piece, we have talked about, and I'm sure many of you have already read about and discussed this, but school personnel, if we are verifying and pledging that we will be in person on March 1st, they will move school personnel up in the line for vaccinations for the COVID virus. I did submit the paperwork to the state, basically saying that we pledge to be in person on March 1st. So we should be able to move forward with that line jumping, if you will. But talking with local health departments, we had meetings last week with both Darke County and Miami counties, and even with the governor talking last week. We expect that first vaccination to start somewhere around February 1st. We don't know exactly when it's going to be, but it almost sounds like the rationing is going to be very limited. And we may even have to say, okay, during week 1 of vaccinations of Bradford, teachers, this one, or staff members, this one are going to get it. And then the next week, this group of staff members will get the vaccine, and so on and so forth. So it may not even be a blast, so-called shotgun approach, where we can vaccinate many people or all the people in one day, but rather stagger it out over the course of weeks. So anyways, if any of you have questions about that, please contact me. I will keep you updated as new things come about. And that being said, that is all I have for my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Any questions for Mr. Hurst? I guess I would encourage everyone to look at their risk and contemplate having the coronavirus vaccine. I read the study till I had mine 2 weeks ago, and I think you have 2 choices currently. You're either going to get sick or get vaccinated. We don't have much other options. And it was a 2-month study of 30,000 people with 15 in the control arm, and very limited side effects in that window of time. And an article just released in New England Journal of Medicine 2 weeks ago suggested within 14 days there is a significant reduction in your chance of acquiring the infection, even though it's currently recommended to be considered immune shot, which would be 6 weeks. And that's why for school districts, he wants to get started soon to get everyone to have the proper immunity prior to the March 1 of also a recent conference I was at suggested there's very little transmission within the school districts to do what you guys are doing there, which is doing the distancing and doing the face coverings. You know, that for students under the age of 10, that's very little transmission inside the district. So I think it supports if we can keep our staff safe and healthy, be able to educate our kids, because it's much easier to educate, especially those small students, face than trying to do it virtually. But anybody who's involved with the students and being there that meets the criteria, I would encourage them to look at their risk and consider the vaccination. So that's just my 2 cents. I appreciate Joe getting that set up for our staff.
Thank you.
So next, it looks like all of our reports have been completed. Do we have anything from Transportation and Athletic Director? And if seeing none, next would be Mrs. Brewer. Do you have anything from the Upper Valley Career Center?
I have nothing to report this month.
No news is good news. Next is Mrs. Sir. Do you have anything for us this evening?
Just a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about. We've done very well with the year-end reports, and really, with the exception that we're now doing all the printing of a lot of the W-2s and 1099s tax forms in-house, which has not been done before. We're getting to the point where that will be completed. So hopefully by the end of this week, all year-end reporting will be completed. I will be needing to contact the Auditor of State, because I do believe that with the increase in influx of funds and even the talk about ESERS too, that we will be audited this year and going to an annual audit, at least for the time being. So wanted to make you aware of that. Maybe bringing a contract back to you sooner than presently would be expected, but I think that's necessary with the volume that we're doing at this point. The last thing I really wanted to bring to you, you'll be voting on the budget tonight, which is a required document for us to get our tax monies from Miami County. And hopefully you had an opportunity to look at it. It's more or less a statutory document that just reflects the 5-year forecast. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask, but it's a reflection of what you have already seen. It's just broader because it covers more of the funds. And with that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Carla? Hearing none, thank you very much for your update. Next is public participation. I do not see any requests. So the next item on our agenda is approving the financial reports from the treasurer, which is items 1 through 14. The superintendent recommends all the consent items listed for us: the financial journal, the check register, the now and then certifications, and multiple donations for the Bryant Andrews Scholarship Fund. And Bryant Andrew Byers. Too much speed reading this evening. Next item is item 13, which is the budget, which was mentioned. And the next item on page 6 is petition, which is Chief Financial Officer statement in item A, and B and C. I'll let you guys read those. And item 14 is training grant for $2,500 for the Ohio Attorney General Office. Do I have a motion to approve those items before us?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion over those topics? Hearing none, roll call for approval, please.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Reindl,
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
Next item is old business. We have none on our agenda. We have new business. We have items 1 through 8. The superintendent recommends us approving the consent items, pending the completion of all the requirements for certification, licensure, and completion of criminal background checks for the hirings. Item 1 is a supplemental for coaching positions listed. Next item is moving staff from to master columns, changing their status based on their educational changes. Tuition reimbursements, approving the mileage rate based on the new changes in the IRS each year, and then a resolution for the sale of bus number 11. And then item 8 is of property for the bus. Do we have a motion to approve all the items that have that are on your screen? I didn't.
So move.
Mr. Biesecker first, and Mr. Miller for a second. Thanks, guys. Any discussion or questions that we have over those items that are on the?
Number 8.
Yeah, I'll throw in, this is a new one that we added onto the agenda today. As we were going through some of the things that we were talking about with posting things on publicsurplus.com, we already have the scoreboards that were voted on last month, but we looked through to see if there was any way to get rid of some old furniture that's just sitting around taking up space that nobody's using. Some things like that. This motion would allow us to do that without having to come back and asking permission each time. It is basically listed in 3 different sections here. Everything is $10,000 or less that we would have access to selling or getting rid of, but it breaks it down into 3 different pieces. If it's valuable, we will sell it. If it's semi-valuable, we'll try to sell it, but if we can't sell it, then we have on an auction, we will have the chance to sell it outright. If it's not able to be sold outright or through the auction, then we would be able to either recycle it, donate it to a 403c, or something like that. And in the case of something that is completely reached the end of its life, there's a possibility of disposal as well. Carla, did you want to throw anything in there?
No, I think you covered it very well. I think it just essentially is the ability for us to dispose of some of the items that are no longer necessary in the school district without coming back to you each time and allowing it for this year.
In a couple examples, we've got an old conference table that is just taking up space. Skip has a pile of desks that have been in the barn for years and years that are just taking up space. I don't want to deplete our desk population, but I certainly wouldn't mind reducing it some. So those type of things.
No sacred cows involved?
I don't think so. I don't believe so, no.
Sounds like it needs to happen.
Clear up some space.
Yep. Any other clarification? Hearing none, then roll call for approval.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Reindl,
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
Next item is Superintendent recommends number 9, which is supplemental contract for area card assistant varsity softball coach. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Biesecker. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call for approval.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Besecker.
Yes.
And next item is the second and final reading of the Neola policies. Any questions or clarifications that we have or concerns with any of the policies that are on for our second reading? Hearing none, then this would be the final reading and we would vote to approve these policies. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller and Pastor Rindle. Any other discussion or questions regarding these? Hearing none, then roll call for approving the policies.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Besecker.
Yes.
The next item is a motion to enter into executive session. Do we have things to discuss, Mr. Hurst?
At least touch base to see how
Yes.
deep we need to go tonight. Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. So it is a motion to enter executive session for item G1 on your agenda.
I so move.
Thank you, Pastor. And Scott Besecker for a second. A roll call for our executive session.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Rindle,
Yes.
Mr. Besecker.
Yes.
So we entered executive session at 7:10, and after the executive session, there will be no actions or voting taken by the members. Thanks everyone for attending. Our next item for discussion is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Biesecker and Mrs. Miller. Mr. Miller? Roll call for adjournment.
Mr. Miller,
Yeah,
Dr. Swab,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Pastor Reindl,
Yes.
Mr. Biesecker.
Yes.
We stand adjourned at 7:30. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks all.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Mike.